Hey everybody, this is Harrison again, and on the side of my screen here, you will see just a few of the results that I've helped other guys get with their one-person businesses over and over and over and over again. You can pause it and read them if you want, or you can go to ctsincubator.com. And today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes I made in my entrepreneurial journey so that hopefully you can avoid some of the same mistakes. You can leverage my failures to save you time, save money, and avoid all of these pitfalls that I fell victim to. And as always, no bloated intro. I hated videos that have these 4-minute intros to get to the point. Nobody's got time for that. We're jumping right into it. These are the things that if you do them are going to put your entrepreneurial journey on hard mode unnecessarily. And we'll start with number one. And I have an embarrassing story with this one. Number one, I'll tell you the story in a second. Number one is you're going to sell things that are low dollar. You're going to sell things that are cheap. That's pitfall number one. And here's my embarrassing story. So the very first thing I ever released or launched online, I had this big Twitter following. Back when it was Twitter, I had 40,000. I go some freaking cat. I had 40,000 followers at the time, and I fell victim to the things that a lot of beginners fall victim to. I didn't have confidence to sell something expensive. I never really sold anything at all before, and I vastly overestimated what type of conversion rate I would get on my first product. So the product was a $5 a month, $5 a month subscription to what I called Save Your Son's University. And it was basically, they got this new course from me every month on like masculinity, fatherhood type stuff, boundary setting, finding your purpose, finding the right wife, that kind of stuff. And these were 1 or 2 hour courses, audio lectures with like 50-page PDFs. They were robust and they were good, and they took a ton of time to make. And then there was also like a private community where you got to network and engage with me and other guys. So what happened? I launched this thing at $5 a month thinking, I've got 40,000 followers. I'm going to get a couple thousand of them to sign up at $5 a month, and then I'll be good. $10,000 a month out the gate, right? Well, what actually happened, as you can see here, I drove thousands and thousands and thousands of clicks to the sales page for this thing. I pumped it like crazy. And when it was all said and done, I had gotten about 100 people to join it out of 40,000. That's it. So I was up around $400 or $500 monthly recurring revenue after fees. And all I was left doing was thinking, wow, what a loser. What a joke. And I could have made $400 way easier than that, way easier than I did. Because remember all that went into this. I mean, I probably spent 20 hours a month preparing the course, just the course, plus countless hours in the community engaging, plus hours promoting it with this huge audience. And I managed to sell 100 people. Make $400. Terrible. But later on, when I got smart and I sold more expensive things like fitness coaching or consulting, stuff like that, then I could sell $400 worth of stuff, even $4,000 worth of stuff with one post and one conversation. So that's what you're leaving on the table if you're afraid to sell expensive things. You're setting yourself up for a huge waste of effort and waste of time. And I fell into this trap for the same reason that a lot of you will fall into this trap, because we think it's lower pressure. We don't have the confidence to charge more. We think it'll be easier to sell at a high volume if we sell something that's really cheap. But here's the issue with that. I'm going to get, this is some data for you, some math. Yes, it's easier to sell a $5 thing than a $500 thing. Yes, of course it is. But it is not 100 times easier. So in other words, if you convert 1 out of 30 people to your $5 thing, which is pretty good actually for somebody with no experience in marketing or copywriting. If you convert 1 out of 30 to the $5 thing, that doesn't mean that you would only convert 1 out of 3,000 for a thing that costs 100 times more. You see what I'm saying? The math doesn't work that way. There's this huge barrier to get over between something that's free and something that costs even $1. There's a massive chasm to get over psychologically to go from free to paid. But then the difficulty of ramping up from $1 to $2 or $1 to $20 or $200 is not commensurate to the difficulty of ramping up from free to $1. Psychologically, it doesn't work that way. Instead, it looks more like a logarithmic graph where free to $1 is pretty steep, pretty difficult. But then you go up to like 1 million to 2 million. It's basically a rounding error in your difference in conversion, because most people who can afford to pay $1 million for something could just as easily afford to pay $2 million for something. And I'll caveat this real quick. I love selling low dollar things if and only if it leads into a high dollar thing. And I'll talk more about that later. But this section is about when you make the low dollar thing the cornerstone of your business, your only offering, with no plan to increase lifetime value of the people who buy the low dollar thing later on. But there was another problem with this community, which I'll talk about next, which is another mistake that I made early on in my journey. And that is, you sell something that nobody asked for, And that was the other issue with this cheap, low ticket community. Nobody freaking asked for it. Nobody really wanted it. There was no clear benefit for joining it other than, oh, this is a place to talk to other dads or other dudes. And by the way, I tried to make this thing work. I tried to make this community work for like a year. And one of the things I did do right in the early days was ask people why they joined it. And the most common answer by far that I got was, oh, man, I just love your Twitter account. I wanted to support you and your work, which people thought they were giving me a big compliment when they said that. But to me, it was the worst thing they could have said, because they didn't join because the thing was good. They didn't join because it solved a problem in their life. They joined because they liked me, which is great, but it's not a business. It's not a business. So that's the core issue here I see a lot of people facing when they launch something. And then what I did wrong was that I did zero market research. I did zero speaking with prospective customers about the problems they actually had before I undertook this massive effort that ultimately led me to a $400 a month project. Instead, I just thought, well, I don't know, there's a community, I can get recurring revenue, I got a big following, great, I'll just do this. And I went and did it completely autonomously and unilaterally. And the results in retrospect are exactly what you would expect. Nobody wanted this thing, and selling something nobody wants is one of the hardest things you can do in business, unless you just catch lightning in a bottle and invent the next pet rock or something. And hint for you won't do that. Unless you just get completely lucky, you're going to have a massive uphill battle if you're selling something that nobody asked for, which I did. So instead, what I recommend and what I do now whenever I'm launching something new is do the work. Figure out what people actually desire. Figure out what actual problems people have that they would pay to solve, and then go sell that. Don't try to outsmart your market. You may be smarter than the next guy, but you ain't smarter than the next 1,000 guys. You're not. Sorry. So listen to what they say and don't waste all this time like I did. And that's a good segue into my next beginner mistake that I hope none of you have to suffer. And this one's even more embarrassing because it happened to me relatively recently and later on in my journey when I should have probably known better. But this one is selling things that nobody's ever heard of, selling things that people don't understand. And this one was my venture into app building. And I've always been passionate about, if you know me, if you followed me for a while, I'm passionate about kids entertainment. I have a kids podcast that I produce for a couple years now. And a big part of my social media message is all about protecting kids from bad influences in our modern environment. So I got hooked up with a business partner who I like very much. And we undertook this mission of creating a kids streaming platform. And to me, it checked all the boxes, although it was cheap. Making that mistake twice. It was $7 a month. So again, that should have been a red flag right there. But otherwise, it checked the boxes for me. It was mission aligned. So I ignored the cheap red flag. And it was so exciting to me because it was software. It was an actual real product that people could buy and use on their phones and on their TVs. But the problem was, it was a completely new way to consume media for people. And it was wholly unfamiliar to anybody. Because what we did was we put thousands and thousands of books, ebooks on this app, along with thousands of audiobooks and thousands of classic cartoons and movies, all in one app so that people could download the app from the App Store. And people were stoked to try it. But when they actually got the app, it was completely unfamiliar to them. It wasn't how they were accustomed to consuming media. People are used to YouTube. They're used to Roku streaming channels. They're used to Spotify. But this was like some strange amalgamation. Did I say that right? Amalgamation of all of those. But it didn't do any of them as well as the dedicated platforms did. So there was this massive uphill battle again in market education around how to actually get use out of this app. And here's why that's bad. Because it's hard enough to sell something people understand. That's already hard. You still have to have good copy and good product market fit, and you have to have sales skills and all of that. But when you layer on a new challenge of educating them on what the product actually is, then you're making it exponentially harder, because you have to educate them before they even understand it enough to buy it. And in today's world of fractured attention, you just don't have that long to engage with potential customers, with prospects, especially if what you're selling is cheap, like our thing was, and it relies on huge volume of sales. You got to be fast. So don't try to make a completely new thing, at least not until you have tons of experience and can afford to take it slow and do it the right way, which we didn't really have at that point in time. A business is hard enough on its own, and we don't need to make it harder on purpose. So that's my recommendation to you. Our next hard mode pitfall, and this one might be offensive to people, but it's the truth. Our next hard mode pitfall: you sell to low income markets. And this is one I have actually done a pretty good job avoiding for the most part, although it has a twin pitfall that we'll get to next that I did fall into. But here's how this one works, with a story from a couple of my clients. So I work with a bunch of coaches, and I help them make their first $10,000 online. And you can check out the link in the bio. You can join our group if you want to learn more about that. It's a school community, over 2,000 members. It's awesome. But a bunch of people I work with are fitness coaches, popular business to start, and a great business to start. So I had two guys at the same time not too long ago. Both are selling fitness coaching, and both had the exact same systems, the exact same word for word sales scripts, the same everything that I gave them. The only difference was one guy was selling fitness coaching to ex-military guys, fresh out of the military, because he was an ex-military guy, and it made sense. That's what he wanted to do. And the other guy, client number 2, was selling fitness coaching to 50 and older professional executive types. So we got the ex-military types, fresh out of the military, and then 50 plus executives. So everything was the same that these guys were doing, except for the markets. And the markets were actually about as different as you can get. And the guy selling to ex-military converted about 1 out of 5 of his sales conversations, so 20%, while the guy selling to established executive types converted 2 out of 5, so 40%. And that's double your revenue, double the return on effort, and everything is the same except the market. And with a 40% conversion rate, which my second guy had, my first move is to always raise the prices, and he did, which means he was making even more than double the first guy. And you extrapolate that over hundreds of conversations and months and years of work, and the difference is astounding, all because of the market that you choose to sell to. Now, of course, you can sell to whatever market you want. I have a huge heart for military guys. It's a great market to serve. They're some of the hardest working, most dedicated guys I know. But the cold reality is they just aren't as likely to have the same level of disposable income as a 50 plus executive crowd does. And that's just the truth. You can't fake that. You can't get around it. It's undeniable. So if you have this big why that says, I got to serve this particular market, I got to serve ex-military, or I got to serve college students, or I got to serve church plants, whatever it is, I applaud you for that. All I would ask is that you go into it with your eyes open, because it's going to be harder. It just is. And that's related to our next pitfall, our next hard mode thing. And this is a hard mode choice that I have made repeatedly. And it's, you're selling to a skeptical market. You're selling to a difficult market. And this is distinguished from low income markets because these people aren't necessarily low income. They're just more discerning. And probably the best example of this market is one that is obviously near and dear to my heart if you've ever seen my content on other platforms. And it's what I've built a large part of my 1 million follower brand around, which is dads. All right. And if you work with me closely, we've had the dad conversation and why it's a hard market. And so we'll use them as our example. So if you're selling to dads, you are, I hate to break it to you, playing on hard mode. End of story. And the reason why is because dads are naturally skeptical about spending money. Because when it comes to the family finances, the buck literally stops with them. Most dads, especially if they're good, responsible dads, are hyper vigilant about the family finances. Excuse me. And we all know examples. We've all seen examples of this. Maybe you're an example of this if you're watching this. I'm not like this at all, but we all know guys who will read every single bank statement, every single month, every credit card bill. And if their heating bill is $2 higher than the month before, they notice it. And I'll never forget, here's another story. My father-in-law, who is a successful surgeon, whose time is worth literally thousands of dollars per hour. He literally charges thousands of dollars for a few hours of work. I'll never forget him seeing a double charge one time from a Chinese restaurant on his credit card bill. So maybe his credit card bill was $20 higher than it should have been one month. And I watched this man, who I love very much, I watched this man spend hours on the phone with his credit card companies to get it removed. $20, despite the fact that his time is worth literally thousands of dollars per hour. And he's a bit of an extreme case. I love you, Steve. You know that. But he's not that extreme. He's not that extreme. That's just kind of a standard dad mentality. And that's what you're up against when you're selling into a market that is that skeptical of spending money. It's just tough. So go into it with your eyes wide open. And the flip side of that is really simple. It's demographics that just don't have the same worries that dads have. So if you want to fix this problem, you sell to the flip side of that market, which is single people, people without kids, older people, even moms in more cases than not are way easier to sell to than dads. And it's because those groups don't have the ultimate pressure of, I'm the provider. If I don't provide, I fail. So I'm taking all of the risk of not being able to provide off of the table, even if it means grabbing at pennies out of the couch cushion every month. If that's the mentality of the market that you're going up against, you're in for a tough ride. I don't know how else to say it to you. So our last one for today, because this is about sweet spot length of YouTube videos, and so I'm proud of that. Our last one for today. I have a bunch more of these, by the way. So if you like this, click subscribe and leave a comment, and I can make more pitfall videos. Telling me that you leave a comment, tell me you want more. But the last one we'll talk about today is you sell things that don't recur. You sell things that don't recur. So think about the biggest businesses that you know. Amazon, Google, Apple, even something like a Costco or a Starbucks. What do they all have in common? What they all have in common is their customers buy from them hundreds, if not thousands of times during their life. They buy over and over and over and over again. And imagine how hard it would be as a business if you were, like, say you're Coca-Cola. Imagine how hard it would be for Coke if they only sold one can of Coke per customer per the customer's lifetime. If that was the case, they would never have to stop finding new customers. It would be a constant game of, I've got to replace this. They've already drank their Coke. They're out of the game. I got to find more. But instead, what they do is people drink Cokes over and over and over again. Some people drink them every day for 40 years. So instead of, if they only drank one Coke in their life and then Coke had to go replace them every time somebody finished their only Coke, the lifetime value of that customer would be $3 or $2. Instead, people drink Coke for their whole lives. The people that drink Coke are Coke drinkers and they Diet Coke or whatever. And the average lifetime value of a Coca-Cola customer is $7,000. I looked it up, so you know it's true. So that's the difference. So when you want a business that is set up in such a way that you get a customer, you need to have other ways to continue to serve them in exchange for money forever. The longer you can keep them opening up their wallet, the more valuable that customer is. And as I think most people know, it's usually pretty expensive to get a new customer, whether you're spending time or you're spending money or whatever, you're finding a new customer. So if you go to all that trouble and then they only buy one thing from you ever, then you have to go to all that trouble again to replace them forever. And that's really expensive and really, really hard. And so there's two ways to keep customers recurring, and Amazon does both expertly. So I'll use them as an example. And this is why Amazon is one of the most valuable companies in the world. So the first way that you can get customers recurring is you can get them on a recurring payment schedule. Here's that recurring payment schedule for the exact same product. And the second way you can get them to buy from you forever, multiple times, is to get them to buy multiple different products. So with the Amazon example, they get you on the Prime subscription, which is whatever it is. I don't even know. I think I actually have two of them. I should be more like my father-in-law and go cancel crap I don't need. But call it, I don't know, $15 a month for Amazon Prime. And people are going to pay that every month for their entire lives, and they're almost never going to leave. And then those same people who are already, this is why it's so genius, because they're already paying $15 a month just to be on the platform, also go and buy products, all kinds of different products, millions and millions of different products every single day on the app. So they're recurring source of revenue and recurring customers all in one shot. And that's not even getting into AWS, that branch of the Amazon business. So what does this mean for you as a solo business owner starting out? You need ways for customers to continue to pay you. And the easiest sale ever for you will be to someone who has already paid you for something else, provided they had a good experience and you didn't rip them off. So a classic example of this is like a funnel where you create the customer. Let's say you're selling via social media. You turn a follower into a lead or a customer by selling them a one-off course or a one-off training for $100. And then you're going to turn around and say, hey, did you like that training you bought? If so, I'll credit what you paid toward my $3,000 done with you coaching offer. And you can save $100 right now, $100 that you already paid me if you go ahead and join it. Then when the coaching is over, you can say, hey, you did so great working with me. Why don't you join our winner's circle of successful clients where I give you weekly check-ins and make sure to keep you on track. And that's just $50 a month. So boom, all in one shot, one customer, they bought 3 things from you and their lifetime value is going to be $5,000 plus, assuming that the backend community is good and they stick around for a while, versus if you were just selling, again, remember at the beginning of the video, that one-off low value thing, $100 or even $5. And that's all they buy from you. Your customer's worth $100 versus if you have this system set up, their customer's worth $5,000. So that's it. I hope this was useful. If you like this type of video, I like making them. They're fun. It's fun talking to you guys and talking about this stuff because I think about it all day long. So give me a like, give me a subscribe, add a comment, and share the video, share it around, whatever, watch it a bunch of times, whatever helps in the algorithm. And until next time, I'll talk to you. Oh, check out the link in the bio, the school community. This is where you get on the phone with me once, sometimes twice a week. Yeah, you can, a ton of free content in there, 2,000 other people in there building their businesses, and click the link in the description. I'll see you inside.